Welcome, listeners, to www.ironradio.org, the website and podcast for all things strength sports and sports nutrition. With your hosts, Lonnie Lowry.
Remember, Phil is like a gnarled old oak tree held together with scar tissue and bone spurs.
Rob Fortney.
And I'm telling you, the pain that I would suffer was beyond excruciating.
And Phil Stevens.
Do it, Rob. You'll kill all those nerves.
Thanks for listening.
Good morning, everybody. Go to strengthguild.com, strengthguild.com. Scroll down to the Iron Radio collections, and we've got new shirts and new banners for you to support the show. Everything from just a regular banner, a regular shirt, to ones with sayings on them, like Lonnie's Phil is like a gnarled old oak tree shirt. And some news for you, we're going to have some contests for people who own these shirts and things. So if you support the show, we'll let you more on that later. So if you get in on these early, you can be one of the first people to win some prizes. So thank you very much. Go check out the site, strengthguild.com. Scroll down to Iron Radio Collections and support the show.
Welcome, Iron Radio listeners. This is Lonnie Lowry. I'm an exercise physiologist, and I'm a nutritionist, and I'm a former competitive bodybuilder.
Yeah, this is Phil Stevens. I run Strength Guild. I'm a powerlifter, a Highland Games athlete, and that's about it.
It is Dr. Mike Nelson, faculty member at the Carrick Institute, creator of the Flex Diet, CERT, and bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, once you're at something for decades, it's just like, it's almost hard to force yourself to go through the list.
No one wants to hear a list of like 8 items.
No, yeah, it's not a resume. It's just everybody, if you're fairly new, we run through this list. I actually picked this up many years ago off a completely unrelated podcast. So you know who you're listening to, right? We're not just excited local gym goers, and this is, year number 2 of our experience with the weights. We've been at it for a while. And so, segue, today's episode is actually going to be, after the break, challenges we faced when we were 20 years old versus today. So, if you're new, we're all 40-somethings. I just past the 50-year mark. So, yeah, we're not kids anymore, but we're going to talk about like what were our biggest challenges when we were 20 versus now. In any case, I'd like to start with a couple of iTunes reviews. We haven't done this for ages, and I just want to give a little call out. Because Iron Radio is, of course, free, it's listener supported, and we're very grateful for the people who do that. But the point is to give back and to be free for everyone. But one of the ways that you can support the show without your pocketbook at all is to make an iTunes review, because oftentimes other podcast sites will kind of swipe the reviews and the other stuff from iTunes, right? So it's just very helpful. So think about that if you would, making a review. Before we hit record, actually, the three of us were just talking about how there are a lot of on YouTube, it's like, make sure you like and subscribe. Or if they do a podcast, they say, be sure to leave a 5-star review. Well, I want you to leave a real review. The point of a review is to review. So,
if we suck, let us know.
Yeah, and then we'll change what sucks. Now, having said that, I like 4- and 5-star reviews, but in any case, let me just read a couple of these because I haven't lately been remiss.
Strength and muscle sport news.
Perfect mix, not total meathead nor egghead. This is by McKaychid. Says, I'm so glad I found the podcast about a year ago. I'm a newly certified personal trainer as well as a pre-med student. So I love how this show caters to multiple aspects of what I'm interested in. I was wondering if you guys, if you haven't already, could do an episode on recovery. Oh, yeah, we've done that. We'll have to. You could Google that in the 10-year archives or go to ironradio.org, my man. It says, stretching, foam rolling in particular as far as a recovery aid. Oh, so he's actually making a request here. We have talked about the overuse of personal foam rollers and that sort of thing, but Mike, have you seen any research lately about, foam rolling and, I don't know, physical manipulation and recovery?
Yeah. I haven't looked at it too much. I looked at it just a brief overview a couple weeks ago, and I don't know. Like, I'm not super impressed by it. I think that, compared to nothing, it can be beneficial, and there are circumstances where just getting more movement or mobility, or I don't know, whatever word you want to toss in there, I think is definitely helpful. But I don't know. I mean, outside of that, I'm not a big fan of foam rollers, I guess. I just think there's other things you can do that are more effective for your time.
Yeah. Honestly, the parallel with a lot of nutritional supplements is similar, right? There's so many things people waste huge amounts of time on that are marginally helpful when they could be doing something with much more impact, you know.
We have talked about, I mean, what I do personally is I do some reflexive performance reset on myself, and then I have one of the massage guns I've been playing around with, so I'll do that on a few specific areas afterwards. But that's about it. You know, start with your warm up, get some good movement in, and just slowly work up to your working sets. If something feels off, then you might need to get a little bit more specific at that point.
Right on. Yeah, he said at the end here, I've heard very contradictory things regarding foam rolling and recovery, and I would love it if you could shed some light on the subject. Thanks again for all you do. So. Next one is from Joey T1501. Perfect balance of science and experience. These guys have the education and practical knowledge to cut through the BS in the news and social media to provide real, useful lifting and nutrition advice. I haven't missed an episode in 5 years, and they never miss a week.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah, that's good.
And I appreciate that, Joey, that you say we never miss a week, because damn it, we are not going to miss a week. It's like, it's the golden rule, right? I'd rather bore your ass off for 20 minutes on Christmas Eve, right, than to miss one. This next one says, Start Mondays Right. This is by C. Marzarella. This is my go-to podcast every Monday morning as I drive to my first client's house. The cast is knowledgeable, funny, and wise. The information makes me delve in deeper after listening to it and to find out more what they were talking about that day. Keep up the great work, guys. Bring back Fortress. So I appreciate that. I think that's kind of the point, isn't it, of like a talk show, is to get you thinking about something that maybe you wouldn't have, or dig deeper. You know, all three of us would be like, well, go look this up. You know, here's a link, or point you to more info if you want, you know. So it's kind of the idea of evidence-based, I guess. One more. This is by Tech EG. Life-changing. I don't write iTunes reviews, but this podcast compelled me. The amount of useful information contained within this archive, dating back for years, is astounding. I was an untrained couch potato until I recently needed a change for health reasons. I was thirsty for real knowledge, not bro science. If you want to get big and strong, listen to these podcasts. Really. So that was nice, too.
Oh, very nice.
Anyway, so I appreciate that, you guys. Those are all from 2019. We need to get some more recent ones. I think the funny thing is, the older the show gets, our number of reviews will go down because people have already made reviews after hundreds of reviews, you know. In any case, it's appreciated. And I also wanted to give a shout out to Jake. Jake is a behind-the-scenes guy, and I don't think we've mentioned this on air before, but he's building sort of an IronRadio.org 2.0 for us. He's ran into some issues with servers deciding to close on him and stuff like that. You know, the usual BS. But I'm excited to see what he comes up with. Phil made us some nice new graphics and stuff that's making its way onto shirts and all kinds of things. And so it'll be nice to have a more modern website. So I appreciate that, Jake. Just a shout out to you, bro. Okay, a little bit of news. This one is from the Institute of Food Technologists. I need to renew my membership with these guys. Almost 50% of U.S. adults will be obese by 2030. Wow. So in the next 10 years, half of everybody, not just overweight, obese. About half of the U.S. adult population will have obesity, and about a quarter will have severe obesity by 2030, according to a study led by Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health and appearing in the New England Journal of Medicine. So the researchers apparently are using a self-reported body mass index from more than 6.2 million adults. Now, at first I raised an eyebrow. Self-reported BMI, but it says because they know basically that self-reports are biased often, they use novel statistical methods to correct for this. I don't know how you would do that.
Yeah. I'm like, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like, 'cause it's like a diet record, right? Like, somebody turns in something, I'm like, you don't eat this. Like, this makes you look like a paragon of virtue, you know? I don't know how I would correct for dishonest raw data, right? But maybe they can. I don't know. Using the data, they projected that by 2030, 48.9% will have obesity. And obesity rates will not be below 35% in any state in the U.S. So even the leanest states are going to have 35% obesity. I think Colorado is very near the top for the leanest. I think they cheat, though, because they live at altitude. Yeah. Sunny, live at altitude, right? Cheaters. Anyway. Not below 35% in any state. Nearly 1 in 4 adults are projected to have severe obesity by 2030. And that's interesting because I've seen data that about 25 to 33% right now are just in the obese category. Now they're talking about kicking that similar number up to the severe obesity. It says severe obesity will likely be the most common body mass index category for women, for non-Hispanic black adults, and for those with annual incomes below $50,000 a year. And that last one is a real kind of eye-opener, isn't it? Like money plays a role with a lot of this. I don't want people to think eating healthy has to be expensive. There's lots of things you can do, like dry beans and rice and stuff like that. But if you want to have all the normal things, tasty, healthier equivalents to your normal foods, that can get costly. You know, when we had the keto guys on recently, it made me think about that. I didn't bring it up at the time, but he's like, you eat all the same things you normally eat. You just eat special versions of it. And I'm thinking, well, that's where it gets expensive. Like if you want no-carb brownies, well, brownies are made out of sugar and wheat, you know. Mm-hmm. So that's where things are going to get more expensive. But anyway, under 50,000, you're going to expect to most of the people you meet, you know, to be obese or super obese. It says, of course, this has substantial implications for future Medicaid costs, according to lead author Zachary Ward. And I think people need to think about that, too, sometimes. There's a real monetary cost because obesity is not just aesthetic, of course. But there's even national security implications for this, right? Think about if there's a draft and everybody is so over-fat that they can't walk a block. I mean, that's literally becomes a national security issue, and that's the kind of stuff you don't think about, right? When this many people are overweight or obese or even morbidly obese, there's economic and even national security concerns then. We're way too fat, and that's a problem. It's a problem.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen the presentation of the CDC. You can get it on their website where they show all the states changing color through the years as they become more and more obese. And then, unfortunately, you see them have to add new categories because they've maxed out the previous obese category.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my God.
A new color, right? Yeah, on the map. Like we need purple now because we've gone through all the shades of blue, you know?
Yep.
Yep. And, of course, I know our listeners are like, well, wait, you know, you guys know BMI is not body comp. Yes, we do. I mean, most of you guys, meaning you listeners. Yeah. You're heavy for your height. I mean, Christ, I think all of us have body mass indexes probably at least hovering around the obese category, you know, 29, 30, something like that. And, again, it's weight for height, right? Everybody knows that. But yeah, we're a drop in the bucket, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about, you know, giant buckets of chili cheese fries. That's what we're talking about here. One more. Can I eat this donut? And I'd like to get your guys' input on this one.
Yes. Oh, wait.
Right. No, wait. You got to wait, Mike, for all the info. It says a quick test for celiac disease. So it says genetic testing revealed that our ancestors have been eating wheat, rye, spelt, and barley for over 8,000 years. Now, that's partly what grabbed my attention, right? Because when we were laughing the other day about how people they don't understand what paleo means, this might be a good example, right? Like, I'm not going to touch anything that's, like bread or gluten, and then they conflate that with paleo, or they combine these diets, you know. So over 8,000 years, it says today, gluten, a protein found within these grains that gives baked goods their chewy consistency, has been given a bad rap. There are controversial claims that maintaining a gluten-free diet is healthier and not just for those with sensitivities or allergies. So I'm just going to skip through a little bit of this. There's a video I can point everybody to. This is on labroots.com. Celiac disease is a hereditary autoimmune disorder in which, of course, consuming gliadin, right, that protein in gluten, triggers inflammation in your small intestine. The problem is the symptoms vary widely. They overlap with other digestive issues like a more global wheat allergy or even IBS, right, irritable bowel syndrome. Women have more issues with IBS than men do, but it's obviously not just a gender thing. But it gets confusing, right? So they go on to say that as a result, over 90% of those with real celiac disease remain undiagnosed. And of course, that's very dangerous because there's long-term effects of having all of those gastric, signs and symptoms. Anyway, the current diagnostic protocol for celiac is an antibody-based assay, and they even give a link here you could look it up, in which blood samples are screened for high levels of tissue transglutaminase IgA. So the specific antibody there. There is a more invasive approach where they can do a biopsy of your small intestine. I know there's been people in my family that kind of went through all this. And if you have a positive blood test, then they'll follow up with the actual biopsy, of your intestines. Anyway, apparently there's a new method developed at the University of Helsinki by Klaus Hedman. So those of you out there who suspect you might have real celiac disease or gluten-sensitive enteropathy, there are new tests. Apparently provides results in just 30 minutes and doesn't require trained technicians or lab instruments to generate the readout. Interesting. So it's the FRET technique, Forster Resonance Energy Transfer. Apparently it detects energy transfer between two light-sensitive molecules. I don't know. But it's interesting. I wonder if this is something that then becomes like a straight-to-consumer test, because it says no lab tech or lab instruments. I wonder. Anyway, so advances, if you're interested in that or you have lots of, bowel symptoms and that sort of thing. They never did answer, can I eat the donut, though? I guess you you got to take one of these tests, and then you'll say, now I can eat the donut. I don't know. So it's just one of those ongoing specialty diets that we give so much attention to. Okay, that's all I've got for listener comments and mail.
I have one other news item, too.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Shameless self-promotion. I'll be in Brisbane, Australia in February, and then February 15th and February 16th, I'll be teaching RPR Level 1 and 2, Reflexive Performance Reset, for the first time anyone's ever taught it in Australia, actually. So February 15th and 16th in Brisbane, Australia at Anytime Fitness. You can just go to the reflexiveperformance.com website, and you'll be able to find it, and hope to see you there.
Sweet. Yeah. You'd be booking the flight like now, so you could get it, it'd get too expensive if you wait like 3 days before and try to fly to Australia.
Oh, yeah. I actually ended up booking the flight several months ago, but yeah. And then I did upgrade to an exit seat, which I'm like, it was $140 extra, but man, 13.5-hour flight, like hour 5, I'm like, why am I such a cheap bastard? I'm crammed in this seat. I hate my life. So.
Oh, yeah. When I flew to Thailand, I felt like that. I'm like, oh, my God, I've been in the air for like 20 hours.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Anyway.
Well, that's just from LAX. You got to get to LAX first, so, yeah.
Right on. Can you just quickly define what that is, what you'll be teaching?
Yeah, so Reflexive Performance Reset is a way of doing kind of activation techniques for muscles to get muscles to work better. The nice part is that you can do it on yourself. So we have some massage therapists that are coming to the course, but you don't necessarily have to be a massage therapist. It's primarily geared towards trainers and coaches. So you can walk them through like in a group setting, like if you would do mobility drills, you can show them how to do these. And then we show you specific testing of how to determine which ones to start with, and then how to determine if it's working correctly or not. And then in level 2, we do get into some stuff related to how your eyes take in information. So if you have a lot of clients that are like out of rehab or post TBI, head concussion, sports, that type of thing, It's super useful for that too, because a lot of times the eyes can kind of sort of get rewired, so to speak, and changing that makes a huge difference for a lot of athletes.
Yeah, and deep reaching. My wife has been telling me about a lot of the different like eye techniques that they're doing for people with like post-traumatic stress. Yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, because the quick story on that is that anyone I've seen who's had pretty, head trauma in the past or PTSD, like they've done a lot of other therapies and nothing really seems to work. And then they see either, clinical neurologist or someone who looks at eye function. Once they kind of get that cleared up, like all of a sudden everything else starts working again. Mm-hmm. So it's something even to keep in mind if people are not familiar or not done the training. Is on my little history list I have, have you ever been knocked out? Do you had a TBI? Things of that nature, because that's usually a flag that some stuff may not be working so well. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to get them to cue and they don't seem to take the cues as well as other athletes, usually there's something going on there.
Right on. And everybody, I mean, I know you're used to no BS. We're not trying to make an ad out of this, right? The point is, the nervous system is complex, and I really have a lot of appreciation for the idea that it's not just efferent, like you're not just using motor neurons to drive movement. There's a feedback. There's an afferent portion of this, and oftentimes they feed off each other in all kinds of interesting ways. So, okay. Phil, you mentioned something about Facebook. There was a question?
Yep. It's from, last name's Peterson. This may be a silly question, but I'll ask anyways, out of my curiosity. Is there a benefit to eating a coffee or espresso bean over just brewing a cup of coffee or espresso? I happen to see chocolate-covered coffee or espresso beans in my local grocery store and didn't know if I got any additional benefits consuming the entire bean. Thanks, and keep up the great work.
Cool. Well, obviously you're going to get everything that's in the bean if you chew it up and swallow it. The difference between hot brew and cold brew is because it will extract different, water-soluble phytochemicals at different rates and in different amounts, whether the water's hot versus cold. If you're not familiar with cold brew, it's more like, it's almost like soaking oatmeal overnight kind of idea, where you're just steeping all those grounds, and some people will say it's smoother, different acidity, that sort of thing. I like something like chocolate-covered espresso beans, munch them up. Because, of course, you're just going to get the totality of what's in that bean. So, I would think that a handful of those before you work out, that would be helpful probably. You're going to get all those antioxidants and things like that. I'm actually not aware of what traditional hot drip or pour over might do to some of the antioxidant benefits and that sort of thing, but typically the chlorogenic acid, the caffeic acid, which is sort of related to chlorogenic acid, a lot of these things that help blood sugar, antioxidant effects, stuff like that, they obviously come out in the pot, right? They're very rich in green coffees, that sort of thing. So the degree of roasting is going to affect what's in those beans you have too. I don't know if the chocolate covered kind or the ones you just eat the beans, if they just roast the bejesus out of those so they're nice and crunchy. I'm not sure exactly how that works though. But yes, the short answer is you're going to get a lot of good stuff from eating the bean too. So,
do you know about caffeine content on that, Lonnie, in terms of the bean, since it isn't exposed to hot water?
Actually, I have not.
I was curious about that because everyone says they're super high in caffeine, and I haven't really looked it up or been able to find anything that's looked at it if you're just eating the raw kind of coffee bean.
Right. I haven't done any work where I've fed people just straight coffee beans, right, of course. But
yeah.
I mean, gum,
there you go.
Caffeine gum, yep, coffee, yep, energy drinks, yep, but not as many people will actually eat it, but that's why that's an interesting, novel question, I guess. But that it is interesting. Like I said, I know that if they roast the bejesus out of the beans to make them crunchy and edible, then that would probably reduce the caffeine content a bit.
Yeah.
But I'll have to look that up. Okay. Well, that's about it for the brief mail and news. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about challenges we had at age 20 versus now. So we'll be back.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, you know who this is. So I'm here to tell you about Dr. Mike T. Nelson's new book, Why You Should Eat Keto. I don't do it because, look at me. Come on, I'm fabulous and I'm fantastic. Anyway, you should text the Keto ebook, all in one word, to 44222 to receive your free copy. Do it now!
Hey listeners, this is Dr. Lonnie Lowry. If you've ever had anyone critique you on your protein intake as part of your weightlifting lifestyle, oh, you poor meathead, all that extra protein is going to rot your kidneys or weaken your bones or dehydrate you or give you gout or who knows what. There is a book available. You could simply Google CRC Press and Lowry. And what I've done is reach out to experts all over the world and create a book, a single compendium that you can hold up and say, this is why I consume extra protein. This can be very valuable when you're being quote-unquote educated by various professionals on the topic. There's an enormous amount of literature in this book on the safety, the effectiveness, how protein works in cells, the history of protein and weight trainers, much more. So again, please check out CRC Press and Protein and Lowry. You can just Google that, and I do, full disclosure, I do make a small single-digit royalty on the book, but that's not why I did it. I did it so we can all have something, our particular population, to both defend what we do and to inform our nutrition and our eating. Thanks. Iron Radio is, of course, primarily a podcast. But over the years, there have been technical glitches calling for backup streaming and listeners who wanted the convenience of other sources of audio content. Toward this end, Iron Radio is now simulcast and backed up on YouTube. If needed, please search Lawnman07 or Iron Radio from within YouTube. There's not much video, but if you like to listen through YouTube on a Roku or other living room device, there you go.
Like your weekly fix of Iron Radio? In addition to being a popular institute on iTunes, we are also on email. Simply go to www.ironradio.org and sign up for the voluntary email. You'll get a once per week email, no more. That's little more than the show notes and a link to the audio. So go for it.
All right, folks, we're back. It's Phil, and it's Mike, and it's Lonnie, and we're going to talk about the challenges we had when we were 20, our desires, our main challenges as far as strength and muscle sports versus now, essentially, as middle-aged guys, sort of approaching late middle age, really. So, Phil, what about you? What was the 20-year-old Phil faced with, struggling with, you were trying to overcome?
I think the biggest difference for me at the 20-year-old age versus now would be at 20, I was trying to lose a bunch of weight and get leaner.
Interesting.
And stronger and this and that. And now at my age, I'm trying to hold on to as much weight as I can and not get smaller. So not exactly, I'm not in that stage now where I'm getting considerably bigger, but it's like I'm trying to ward off losing as much as I possibly can. So
yeah.
That would be the biggest difference. I was, I was over fat at 20 and I dropped like 100 and some pounds. So, right. And now, no, I don't want to do that. So that's the biggest difference.
Yeah. Now, I remember Fortress once saying, and he was middle-aged when we were having this conversation, but he's like, I don't know if I can stay motivated if I can't literally make gains, like toward a PR. So how do you stay motivated if you're just trying not to get worse? How do you stay motivated?
Well, I'm still creeping up is the good thing.
Okay.
So I've had to do major adjustments in my training. I don't train as much. I found out that as I get older, I can train just as hard, but I can't train nearly as often. But also due to my years of training, I don't think I need as much because I have such a base built. I can simplify my training a lot more, and do the main lifts and slowly creep up. So, and do very targeted assistance work. Like, okay, I better do a little bit of that. But I mean, most of my time is spent on my main lifts, and I know all that base is there, and then I'll do one or two little things. So yeah, it was just learning the balance there as I get older. Like, I don't train hard 4 days a week. I used to train very hard 4 days a week. Now I train hard 1 or 2 days a week, and then a couple days of really light stuff. So, but I'm not crushing. The days of 75-pound PRs are gone. Now it's like, hey, sweet. I trained for 6 months and I gained 5 pounds on an all-time PR. But I mean, when you're talking, those PRs are in the 700 pounds range.
Yeah,
it makes sense. You know, so it's easy to go from 315 to 405. It's hard to go from 675 to 765. You know?
Yeah.
So, I'm luckily not going backwards yet, but I know those days are coming, so I'm trying to fight that good fight now, to where it is. I mean, that's what me and Windler have talked about it a lot. It's hard to reach that age where you realize that you're busting your ass not to go backwards so fast.
Yes.
So luckily I haven't totally reached that yet, but I mean, I'm not as lean as I was, and I don't think I ever will be. Like at 260, when I was even 30, I was a leaner 260 than I am now, and there's not a lot I can do about it. You know, it's just I'm old. So, but I'm okay with that. You know, so
right. Yeah, glucose tolerance, growth hormone concentration, so many things just start to ebb a little. I think there's honor in what you're saying, though, like that whole Tolkien, fight the long defeat. Will Father Time beat you? Yeah, he's going to beat you in the power meet of life, right?
Yeah, but I mean, what else are you going to do?
Right.
Just give up and go down really fast?
No, right. Yep, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
It's honorable. Yep. Mike, what about you? When you were 20, strength and muscle sport kind of goals, were you so academic? What was the story then as far as your challenges?
So 20, I had just been officially lifting for only 3 years. I look back at my records. I was got close to almost, not quite. I was like about 175, which I'm 6'3", but I started at 156 pounds, like in college. This is after puberty and growth spurts and
right.
everything else. So it's interesting just looking back at notes and stuff too. I was still, lifting where I was doing my undergrad, and other than bench press, I didn't really do any deadlifts or squats at that point. I tried doing both of them, and they hurt so bad. I'm just like, this is a stupid exercise. And part of that was probably my structure. I'm sure part of it is I was just an idiot and didn't know what I was doing either. So I think just trying to figure out what to do for lifting. And it was probably later that spring that I read some stuff. Actually, I think it was from John Berardi, and setting my watch to eat every 2 to 3 hours. So I had just started doing that process, which helped a lot. And looking back now, it's like, if I were to kind of change stuff, I realized at the time I didn't know I had so many eye issues and scoliosis and all that other kind of stuff that would, adding a heavier-ish for you weight on the end of a twisted axial spine and not knowing what you're doing is not a good recipe for stuff to end well.
Yeah.
So it seems obvious now, but kind of looking back, you're like, oh, wow, I was still doing 3 years in a whole bunch of stupid stuff.
Right. That's a good point when Phil was talking about base. Your point about our knowledge base was so poor then, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was a bit of a challenge for all of us, that, you're still learning stuff. Not only are you making 75-pound jumps in your lifts just because you're starting from almost square zero, but you're learning stuff. I mean, knowledge is power. And sometimes I think we forget about that. It's not just the physical base that can, keep you bigger now that we've all grown bigger, but it's our knowledge base is much larger, and that's got to help too. I mean, applied knowledge is power, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I never had a 75-pound jump. I didn't really have much of a jump in anything. Looking back, everything was kind of very slowly, non-linear, slow movements overall. But, do something long enough, you get a little bit better at some things.
Right. Now, obviously, you're much bigger than 170 pounds or whatever. So did it come very slow and linear, or did you make this in jumps and plateaus, It
was like ridiculously slow. Like for me to get over 185 took quite a while. So it took another 2 years, I think. And then after that, to get across 200 took about another 2 years from there. So that was kind of I'd say everything was pretty slow. And then if I look back at my notes, I'd have periods of time where I would be injured. So everything would kind of go backwards for a while, and then stuff would go forwards. And probably wasn't if I'm really honest, probably until maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I felt like I actually, at least for my body and my structure, had kind of figured out what works. And the paradoxical thing about that was I just stopped trying to force myself into symmetric lifts. Like doing a Jefferson deadlift worked way better for me than doing a standard deadlift even. And even at that point, I could, deadlift over 400. So I think that was for me the biggest change, was that I tell clients if I go out with my little Jetta and I bend the left front suspension arm and it drives crooked, I can take the steering wheel and I can kind of turn the opposite direction. I can make the car go straight.
Compensate.
But I'm probably causing a lot of undue damage. Even though if you look at the car, you're like, well, I don't know, it's going straight. But then to change it, I'm probably only going to change the left front suspension arm. Right? So, doing a lot of unilateral work only on one side, for me, made a huge difference. That's probably because I'm very asymmetric. So I remember doing Turkish get-ups only on my left side for literally 2.5 years.
Interesting.
Never once did them on my right side. And I just thought one day, I'm like, I'll test and see where my right side is. I thought it was going to be just like stupid weak. It was right where it was before.
Wow.
So I hadn't really gone backwards, but I felt a lot better too. So.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. Phil, what about you? I mean, you were trying to get very lean and I guess make your body weight lower. Was the powerlifting and the strength super important then? And I mean, and from that low in body weight, did you do it slow and steady or make big jumps?
At 20 years old, no, I wasn't into the powerlifting thing yet. This was just, God, I was more into the bodybuilding type thing without stepping on stage type of deal.
Mm-hmm.
The powerlifting came later, probably. I got serious about powerlifting in my late 20s.
Okay.
So 28. So I started dabbling in my mid 20s and then got serious about 28. And then it's been all downhill from there. So I really started gaining weight at about 28.
Okay.
So from 28 to 30, I probably went up 40 pounds.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Nicely done. Very nice.
And then it's been slow since then. The last 13 years has been going from 242 to 275. So
okay, right.
Type of thing.
Yeah. It's funny to hear the similarities and differences with you guys. Like in many ways, I was opposite to you, Phil. That when I was 20, I was hell bent, like calling from God Almighty to take up more space, like that. Right? I weight gain by every means imaginable. I would do, and we've all lived through this, brutal, asinine, 6-day-a-week, 2-hour workouts, negatives, supersets, exhaustive things. As far as similarities, much like you, Mike, like I graduated high school at 155, right? By the time I was 20, I was 175. I made a 20-pound jump because I stopped doing 1,500 different things. So I got out of my negative energy balance. I stopped doing competitive taekwondo and, the track and the pole vaulting and all that kind of stuff. And I just lifted. And that was a pretty big jump early, like we'll say, early college years up to about 175. And then after that, it was slow. So in that way, it's similar to Phil, I guess, because once I was about 175. Now I'm getting more serious, right? Because at age 20, I already been lifting for 7 years, but I was a dumb little kid. You know what I mean? And so I'd say about when I was 20-ish, weighing 175. I had just made that big jump just by correcting the energy balance. But yeah, then it was a slow, steady climb up to almost 230. So that was like through my grad school years and even, early career professor years, kind of thing. So yeah, it is funny to think about that stuff. Whereas now my biggest problem is really my joints. My mom's got really serious arthritis, and I can see it in my hands a little bit and stuff like that. And when it comes to handling loads, it's funny how when your joints don't work, it shuts you down. You can't just suck it up. It's not the same thing as having a mild irritation injury. There is a neurological inhibition, and I'm like, Jesus. But I'm also asking myself hard questions like, this was probably, I don't know, a couple of years ago. I thought, why am I trying to squat 405 anymore? Like, I'm not going to compete again. I never was a power lifter, so what am I doing? Because this is wrecking my back. So, you do come to grips with a lot of this stuff. But like Phil, you got the artificial hip, or I could focus on different goals. Like sometimes I'm wondering, even though it's a good point, Phil, about like you work twice as hard just not to regress, but at the same time, yeah, maybe there's a goal in there somewhere where I can just diet really strict and just get lean as hell for a 50-year-old man. That might be fun. Or at least be a challenge. I don't know how fun harsh dieting is. But I already feel that. Like, there's no doubt. Like, I have to do 2-a-day cardio if I'm going to get leaner, in addition to what I'm doing with the diet for the most part. And that seems preposterous to me. Like, Jesus, 90 minutes, 2 hours a day of cardio in addition to some weights and a strict diet just to get lean. But when I say lean, I mean lean. But yeah, I guess so. Maybe that's the harsh reality of it. I think a lot of people who want to get lean, especially when they're middle age years, they don't realize the sheer amount of effort, of dedicated time you have to put in. It's not like watching a Hollywood person. They've got a lot of support. They've got the luxury chef and they live in the house personal trainer and all this stuff. They don't have a 9-to-5 job. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying, these are other realities. And yeah, you have to dedicate a huge amount of time to do something like get lean. But I just thought getting lean is one of the things that I can still do despite my joints being in pretty rough shape. I mean, I've got over 35 years of fairly heavy, even stupid workouts on these joints. So yeah, like where do you go? I think everybody needs to almost assess at some point what's going to motivate me, even if it is fight the long defeat, I suppose.
Yeah.
Do you find like body composition, you spend more time thinking about, are you ever, at least for myself, like the highest I ever got to was 245, which was the end of grad school. And, I was pretty fat and my sleep was a mess. Life was just, I'd kind of destroyed myself in the process. But, so now I'm like 222, which I came down on purpose. But even then, like the older I get, I'm starting to wonder if this may actually be like the highest I go up, that I may end up settling down closer to just a little bit over 200, just for better body composition reasons, especially as you mentioned, Lonnie, getting older and things of that nature. But do you guys ever wonder if as you get older, you're going to stay more on the leaner side and your, odds of trying to gain mass at all costs are just kind of gone by the wayside?
Yes, definitely.
Especially Phil after your last.
I'm done. I'm done. Yeah, I've come to the realization I will never be 300 pounds. It's just not going to happen. It's not in the car. Well, I was there once in my 20s, but that's not happening again. Like that's the other thing that's different from now. Like in my 20s and 30s, I could eat whatever the hell I wanted, and I felt fine, relatively. Now it's like my digestion goes to shit. Everything goes bad. So it's just bad. Yeah, so I know. And just I mean, you get in your 40s and you start thinking, man, I want to stick around on this rock for a few more years.
Yeah.
In your 20s, you're like, nothing's gonna kill. I can't die, and if I do, who cares?
It is sort of mindset, isn't like when I was 20, I would have been hell bent. I would have tried any legal anabolic I could get my hands on, or, even fascinated with gray area anything that you can kind of think about. And now my interest in anything like that would be more from a longevity mindset, right? Yeah. Or like a health, like hormone replacement therapy is interesting, but not so I can just use it to put on as much weight as possible, but just so I don't fall apart, like for the intended purpose, kind of thing. But getting used to it's the comfort level with downsizing that's been hard for me. Phil, you've done that some, but not a ton, right? Yeah. But I mean, I'm walking around at 200 pounds, a not ripped 200 pounds, and I used to be 230. Now, don't get me wrong, I was pretty sloppy, like Mike's point about when he was 249 or whatever it was. But but I am having to get comfortable with this. Like I put on. They're athlete cut jeans, but there's no way I could. Most of my life, I couldn't wear jeans. I'd have to get Levi's silver tab baggies, if anybody remembers those. Like, it's the only thing I was going to get on my legs. I had almost 28-inch thighs, and I mean, for me, I'm only 5'9", so that was kind of a lot to find jeans to go over that. And now, that's just not the case anymore. It is an adjustment. We actually, Kelly, my wife, was on years ago talking about. That's a big challenge for a lot of athletes, right? When you're no longer squatting 700, 800 pounds, or you're no longer, you no longer have 19-inch arms. How do you come to grips with that? There's a documentary about Dorian Yates floating around Amazon right now, and obviously he's much smaller. Some people really fall apart badly, some less so. Like when they're no longer an enhanced pro. But that's got to be a real challenge. That becomes your sort of salient identity, and then you got to focus on other stuff, I guess.
For sure. And for me, I mean, it has come fairly easy. I just came to the realization that I'm just happy to still be able to get on the platform and do a meet.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like, I'm stoked with if I go out and just do it and don't get hurt. Yeah. And that's it. Because when I'm done and I look around, there's maybe at a big meet, I'm in the old guard. There's maybe one or two people my age or older, and most of them aren't putting up numbers near what I am.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm not beating these 20-year-olds. It's not going to happen. That's out of the cards. Most of them, not the good ones. I'm still beating a lot of them, but
because of injury. I mean, let's face it. It's not just muscle strength, but you can't compete at some point because you're going to rip something loose.
Yeah, and it's just so I'm just happy to still be out there, and if I can keep doing this for as long as I can, I can see myself being happy with just being able to do it. And I'm okay with not doing what I was able to do before, as long as I go out there and give it my all, and I have good training cycle, and I know I didn't just half-ass it. And but I really and this is one thing that I got onto early. I don't live for the meet. I love the training. The training means more to me. I loved it every week. Like, I love that I'm going in there here in an hour and I'm gonna squat and have a good time. So
that's a good point. It does become the training for the most part. I love bodybuilding. I will always do it. I am a lifer. There's no two ways about that. Am I going to get on a posing dais? No. I think there's some differences there because at some point, just aesthetically, I'm just not going to be where I want to be in the next decade. As far as, nobody wants to see that, in my opinion, at least for me. I admire the guys that are in their 50s and 60s and still compete in bodybuilding, but let's face it, when you're, for the most part, if you're not using growth hormone and a lot of other things, you're not going to be 55 years old and handing 25-year-olds their ass on a plate for skin quality reasons, stuff like that. There's just realities. But for you, Phil, I imagine it's the joints holding up and the tendons holding up. But you still get to compete, which is exciting. That's exciting.
Yep.
I think a lot of it is a kind of a risk-reward type thing, too. Because I've realized over the past, probably even especially the last 3 to 5 years, I've probably become very conservative in the gym. Just because, to me, for my values where I'm at in a controlled environment when I'm the idiot doing it, like, I have a very low tolerance to injury. And I know, like, freak stuff happens and you can't always prevent it and that sort of thing. But if it's from me being an idiot, I'd hopefully like to try to prevent that. But I'll, go out and kiteboard and try to jump 20 feet in the air. And there's a lot of bad shit that could happen with that too.
Well, yeah.
But I'm okay with that risk because I've done whatever I can to mitigate it, and that's what I like, and I've kind of accepted that. Where certain areas, like I won't inner tube behind a boat because I know what happens. A driver gets bored, and let's fling this guy off the inner tube. I just don't want to be injured because I put myself in a situation that was out of my control. If I injure myself under my control, then I'm kind of okay with it now.
I mean, there's simple. Yeah, I mean, I've gotten much smarter about training. That's part of age too. But I know when to back off more, and that isn't worth it.
Yeah, it's just
in
not
the long
worth
run.
the risk.
It's not worth. I mean, there's simple things like we got like a 4-foot wall at my gym, and all the kids just jump down it and go to the bottom area. It's like, nah, I'm walking around.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with me. Like, okay, I could do it, but let's say I do it 10 times. One of those, there's a good chance that something's gonna. Oh God,
right.
It's not worth it.
That's
it's
right.
like I'm old and beat up. I'll walk around. You guys go the short way.
It's just not that important. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, I think that's sort of one of the differences as you get older too. I mean, I imagine we will never know how many times we didn't have a blowout because we're like, nope, I'm done today. And you turned and you had the maturity to walk away. Not laziness. You guys know what I'm talking about. Nope. I'm not. Something feels off in my back, my hamstring, whatever. Nope. And then, like I said, we probably have avoided numerous tears or, joint problems because, you learn that unspoken difference, that nuance, like, not today.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I guess that's sort of the crusty old guys. We devolved into that. But we have young guys that listen to the show, and then they can hear what we went through when we were 20, what we were thinking, from different perspectives, and then they could compare themselves. And then we have some middle-aged people, too, and they're probably laughing, oh, yeah, I feel you, bro, and maybe trying to keep some kind of positive mindset as you move forward, too. There's always some kind of goal that you can pick out and get after, even if it's drifting more into the coaching, teaching aspect, and then still deciding what you can do physically yourself,
Yeah.
And I think having goals that you want to achieve, even that are longer. And one thing I've also realized is the older I've gotten, my timeline for goals has gotten a lot longer. So, for example, to lift the Denny stones, I gave myself 12 years, right? So my goal now is to do it by the time I'm 50. So I got 5 more years yet. Where when I was 23, it's like, I just want to bench 135 so they don't laugh at me,
Yeah.
But I thought I'd be able to do that in a couple of weeks, and it ended up taking 2 years. You get, I think, more realistic with what our actual timelines, and I think that's helpful because it, like you said, with risk, you don't feel like you have to force that last rep. You're like, okay, I still have time. I don't want the goals to completely get away and get so far away that I'm not focused on them anymore. But it's not like I need to get them done next month either. You're more realistic with how long it's going to take.
Mm-hmm. To me, it's in some ways it's like the Sun Tzu. Only choose battles you've already won. And there are certain battles when you're 50, you're not going to win those. Like when it comes to like a joint health or something like that. You've already enjoyed decades. I've had a freaking blast lifting heavy and even kind of stupid, throughout my life. I don't regret any of that stuff. So at the same time, I want to choose goals that I know as a physiologist I can win, right?
Yep.
And so that's important. So.
Well, and that's like a lot of it for me is like I'm choosy on when I uncork the bottle.
Oh yeah,
totally.
It's still there. Like I'll be in there with the young guys training, and there'll be days where it's like, okay, here it comes, and I'll turn it on, and they're like, holy shit, and they're like, okay, the old guy can still do it, but then I back up, and then I'll back off for 2 months.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's like something a wild hill would come out there, but it's very chosen. Like I know I'm feeling good and this and that. It's not willy nilly, and I'm calculating the risk versus reward.
The price.
It's like, okay, today's feeling good. I can do this, and it's like, here we go.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this years ago, but I had an older strength coach come talk to my strength and conditioning class years ago, and afterwards, I think it was one of the kids said, oh my God, those old guys will kick your ass. And I'm like, yes, they will. What I didn't say to him is, and what they wouldn't say to most people is, they're going to pay a price after they beat your ass for a while.
Yeah.
They're going to limp around for a while.
Yeah.
So capable, yes, but pay a price. It's one of those lessons of age, I think. But it does give you some pride that at least you can still tear it up. You just have to be very cautious where you're going to do that.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So we can still do it just as hard as ever, maybe harder, just not near as often. So
the frame won't have it.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, and thanks everybody for listening to our rants about when we were young and now not so young. So we'll, I guess, see you next time. Next time.
All right, thanks a lot.
Hey listeners, have you seen the store at IronRadio.org? There are 3 halls in the store. One for Phil, one for Fortress, and one for myself, Dr. Lowry, and they're thematic. So you can go into our Halls of Iron store and choose based on your goal. If you need something to learn or read or something nutritional, you can look in my store, Lonnie's store. If you want something about injury prevention or competition, then take a look at Phil's Hall of Iron. And if you want something about motivation or daily training, Fortress's Hall has what you're looking for. There are some fun, heroic descriptors as you browse through the store, so we try to make it a little more fun than the average boring online store. And whether you're a novice lifter or someone more experienced, you can take heart that you're not wasting your time. The things that we put in each Hall of Iron are actually based on our own recommendations. Protein powders that we know to be good, knee sleeves, wraps of some kind, things that Fortress uses in his own training. The stuff you see, is good. This way you don't waste time. So check out the Iron Radio Store at ironradio.org and let us know what you think on the forums, and certainly you can request products and we will screen them before they go in. So thanks for listening. Iron Radio is accepting donations. If you like what we do, the professors, the scientists, the bodybuilding show promoters, the athletes themselves in powerlifting and bodybuilding, please consider making a donation or maybe buying something from the IronRadio.org store. We also are accepting supporting members. So for $4 a month, which is frankly less than the bank sneaks out of your account in fees, you can step up and support a form of sort of public radio for the bodybuilding and powerlifting and strength community. The Iron Radio podcast and all of the audio on ironradio.org is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, it's important to check with your physician. Also seek the help of registered dietitians, athletic trainers, and qualified exercise physiologists in order to make the progress that you need.